Have you ever had that moment where your paycheck finally goes up and you think, okay, this is it, I can breathe now. And then like 2 weeks later, you're still checking your bank app the same way. Still doing that mental math in the grocery aisle, still feeling that little jolt in your chest when an unknown number calls you. It's weird, right? Because on paper, you did the thing everyone says fixes money stress. You made more money. So why do you still feel financially tense, like you're one surprise expense away from losing control? In this video, I want to explain why earning more often doesn't reduce financial stress at all, and the specific structural change that actually does. And there's one question I ask people that predicts almost instantly whether their next raise will calm them down or just upgrade their anxiety. I'll give you that question in a minute. Most of us grow up with a very clean story about money. Stress is caused by not having enough income, so the solution is more income. And I'm not going to pretend income doesn't matter. If you're genuinely below what it costs to live, no mindset trick is going to magically make the rent cheaper. That's real, that's grounded, that's not a character flaw. But here's the part that messes with people. A lot of financial stress isn't caused by low income. It's caused by a specific relationship between your income, your commitments, and your sense of safety. And that relationship can stay broken even when your salary goes up. In fact, sometimes it gets worse, because when your income rises, your life often expands to meet it. Not in a dramatic, I bought a yacht way, in a quiet, normal way. You move to a slightly nicer place because you're tired of the neighbor's bass through the wall. You upgrade your car because you've been meaning to, and now you can justify it. You start saying yes to things that used to feel optional because you don't want to be the friend who always says, I can't this week. And suddenly, that raise that was supposed to be oxygen becomes a new baseline. This is the open loop I want you to hold in your head. If money stress was purely about income, then every raise would feel like relief. But for a lot of people, raises feel like pressure with better packaging. Let me say it in a way that might land. Financial stress is rarely the feeling of I don't have money. It's the feeling of I don't have control. And control isn't about your salary. Control is about how predictable your life is when life stops cooperating. That's why two people can make the same amount and feel totally different. One person makes $80,000 and sleeps fine. The other makes $140,000 and feels like they're constantly behind. Because the stress isn't living in the number, it's living in the gap between what you've promised your future self and what you can reliably deliver. And this is where the psychology part comes in, because your brain doesn't experience money mathematically. Your brain experiences money emotionally. Your brain is asking questions like, am I safe? Am I falling behind? Do I have options? Can I handle it if something goes wrong? Now here's something most people don't expect. Sometimes making more money increases financial stress because it increases the stakes of your identity. At a higher income, you don't just buy more stuff, you buy expectations. You start living in a way that feels harder to downshift from. And downshifting is psychologically painful. It's not just, I'd have to cancel Netflix. It's, I'd have to admit I can't keep up. It's, I'd have to move. It's, I'd have to explain. That's why lifestyle creep is so sticky. It's not just consumption, it's self-concept. And the creep isn't always even fun. A lot of people don't increase spending because they're greedy. They increase spending because they're tired. Tired of commuting, so they pay for convenience. Tired of being stressed, so they outsource friction. Tired of feeling behind, so they buy relief in the form of faster shipping, food delivery, nicer upgrades, little comforts that make life tolerable. And those things are understandable. I'm not judging that. I'm saying if your stress is coming from a lack of control and your solution is to buy comfort instead of building structure, you can earn more forever and still feel shaky. Let's make this concrete. Imagine you get $1,000 a month increase after taxes. That's a meaningful raise. In your mind, you're already spending it, not irresponsibly, just naturally. Maybe $250 goes to a nicer apartment because you've outgrown your place. Maybe $150 goes to a car payment increase because you upgraded. Maybe $100 goes to subscriptions and convenience because you're busy. Maybe $200 starts quietly supporting other people, because once you earn more, your family's needs don't disappear, they just become more visible. And now you're left with, what, $300? But here's the twist. You don't feel that $300 as extra. You feel it as the only buffer I have. So every time something happens, your brain goes right back to the same place. Do I have enough? And if you don't have a structure that protects that buffer gets eaten. Not by one big disaster, by 10 small ones. A dentist bill, a birthday trip, a friend's wedding, new tires, a slightly higher utility bill, a laptop that starts dying at the worst time, a week where work was brutal so you spent more just to cope. That's not a budgeting failure, that's a system failure. And I know that can sound harsh, but it's actually good news, because systems can be built. Now let's talk about the misunderstanding that keeps people stuck. Most people think financial peace comes from having a lot of money. But what actually reduces financial stress is having a gap between your required life and your available money. Not your desired life, your required life, your minimum viable month. The amount it costs to keep your life stable if nothing cute happens. Because when you have that gap, your nervous system changes. You stop treating every expense like a threat. You stop fearing random Tuesdays. You stop feeling like your boss controls your life because you can't afford to breathe wrong. And that brings me back to the question I mentioned at the beginning, the one that predicts whether a raise will reduce stress. Here it is. If your income disappeared tomorrow, how long could your current lifestyle survive without you borrowing, panicking, or begging your future self for mercy? Most people don't like that question, not because they're irresponsible, because it forces clarity. And clarity is uncomfortable, but it's also the doorway to control. Now I want you to introduce one contradiction that I think explains a lot. The goal isn't to eliminate financial stress completely. A certain amount of money concern is normal, even healthy. It's your brain trying to keep you alive. The goal is to turn financial stress from a constant background alarm into an occasional signal you can respond to. And the way you do that isn't primarily by increasing income, it's by reducing fragility. Fragility is when your life only works if everything keeps going right. And higher incomes can accidentally build more fragility because you build a life that requires you to keep performing at that level. That's why the big salary sometimes feels more trapped than the person making less, because their minimum viable month is huge. Their fixed costs are high, their obligations are heavy, and their identity is tied to not slipping. So, what's the turning point? What's the shift that makes more money finally feel like relief instead of noise? Hold that thought, because this is where it gets personal. I've noticed that people who feel calmer with money aren't always the ones who make the most. They're the ones who built a separation between who they are and what they spend. They don't use spending to prove they're okay. They use structure to prove they're okay. And that sounds subtle, but it's massive. Because if your spending is tied to identity, a raise doesn't make you feel safe. A raise just gives your identity a bigger stage. You don't just buy nicer things, you buy the right to feel like you're doing life correctly. And the problem is that feeling fades, so you need a new purchase, a new upgrade, a new "I'm finally okay now." That's the treadmill, and it's exhausting. Here's the shift. Financial peace comes when your lifestyle is built around safety first, not status first. And I don't mean status like luxury cars. I mean the everyday status of being the person who can say yes, the person who can keep up, the person who doesn't have to think about it. Sometimes the most expensive thing you buy is the version of you you're trying to maintain. Now I want you to do something with me for a second. Just imagine a very boring future scene. It's a random Wednesday, nothing special. You wake up, you make coffee, you check your phone, and you realize a bill hit your account that you forgot about. Old you would feel that spike, that tightness, that immediate, okay, what do I move around? What do I delay? But in this future scene, you pause, and it's quiet. Not because you're rich, because you built space. You know exactly where that bill lands. You know what it means.
You're not guessing, you're not negotiating with your next paycheck, and you go on with your day. That moment right there is what people think more money buys. But more money only buys it if your structure is designed to convert income into safety. And this closes one of the loops from earlier. The reason some raises don't work is because they increase your lifestyle faster than they increase your margin. Your stress didn't disappear because your margin didn't change. So now let's talk about what actually changes the margin in real life without turning you into a spreadsheet robot.
If you take nothing else from this video, I want you to hear this clearly. You're not broken because more money didn't fix your stress. It's actually a very common, very human outcome because your nervous system doesn't calm down when your income rises. It calms down when your life becomes less fragile, when you have margin, when you have a buffer between you and random life, when you can make a mistake without it becoming a crisis. And if you're sitting there thinking, okay, but I'm not there yet, that's fine. The point isn't to leap to some perfect financial life. The point is to stop believing the myth that the next raise automatically equals peace. Sometimes the raise is just a brighter light shining on a structure that was already shaky. And the good news is, structures can be rebuilt quietly, slowly, without becoming a different person overnight. Just enough margin at a time, until one day you notice something small. You go a full day without checking your account. You get an unexpected bill and you don't spiral. You realize you're not constantly bracing for impact, and it hits you kind of softly. Oh, this is what calm feels like. That's the real upgrade, not the bigger paycheck, the bigger sense of control. And you can build that.